Okay. Slayers of subluxation. No flashy intro music here today. This is going to be a little bit of a different recording. I don't know if I'm going to release this. I really don't know if I'm going to release this. If you guys are driving, I'm probably going to curse. I don't even know if I'm going to talk about chiropractic, but here it goes. This morning at around, it's Friday, the 19th of November, by the way. And this morning at around 8:30 a.m., I got two back-to-back phone calls from my mother. I was in the house, I was talking to our painter, and everything was a mess, and my wife is due with our first baby in 3 weeks. So I just ignored both, and she called, and then she called back, and I'm just like stressed, and I'm like, fuck mom, like I'm so goddamn important. What could possibly be so urgent that you keep calling me? And then a text. 3 words. Matt is dead. And I've always thought that the word gasp was dramatic and something that was only reserved for great literature or Hollywood. But what came out of my body mid-conversation with our painter and whoever else was there, the 30 seconds prior, was the most important thing in the world and no longer fucking mattered, was a rushing of air that contained every ounce of pain and sorrow and regret and longing, all boiled into 1/2 second explosion of sound that could only be described by the word grasp. Matt was my 4 years younger brother. And 10 minutes prior to that phone call that was ignored, that second phone call that was ignored, and finally that text message that could not be ignored, my father frustratingly went to go wake up his son only to find him cold, blue, lifeless, and covered in what used to be the contents of his stomach. When I think of Matt, the best things that come to mind are effortlessly cool. Matt is Leonardo DiCaprio cool. He could walk into a bar with no money and somehow leave with 2 women after a night with random people who somehow invited him into the VIP section because they thought he was awesome and wanted to hang out with him level of cool. He was always that way. People were drawn to him. When I was in high school, my female friends at 17 would always comment how awesome and hot my brother was and how they couldn't wait for him to grow up. And my only response was, you know he's 13, right? And it didn't matter. My brother and I always had a really tumultuous relationship, and we never really got along. Specific events were involved, but aside from that, our relationship was mostly rocky because when it came down to it, I was a really shitty older brother. And I was a mostly shitty older brother because of envy and jealousy and rage and regret and all of the horrible things that drive all of the horrible actions that go into being a shitty older brother. I had to work so freaking hard to accomplish every little thing in my life, from friendship, from pontification to being accepted. I had to work so hard so that I could somehow impress the people around me. And then, and maybe only then, would they maybe like me. Yet him, all he had to do was exist as he was in his own self, and people were, for some reason, drawn to it. Looking back, I have so many lessons that I would like to teach my insecure, vengeful, hateful, and angsty younger self about authenticity and alignment. But many of those lessons that I would teach myself now, with all the things I've learned in my life, I could have just learned then from him. Matt was always the street smart one in the family. Often I've just been described then, as for many of you guys who know me, I've very easy to describe me as the dumbest smart person you'll ever meet. But Matt just got it. 4 years my younger, he'd give me advice on dating and tell me to stop trying so fucking hard. And when I was walked all over, he told me to stop. And of course, I heard all of it and listened to none of it. But days, weeks, months later, after those conversations, after I made absolutely every wrong decision because I just need to learn the hard way and I'm so smart and can't take advice from anyone, especially my younger brother, in hindsight, he would always be right. When I went to my dark, depressed places in my late teens and early 20s, and I'd call him blackout drunk and high and on pills and covered in my own vomit and piss and modeling all of the horrible behaviors that an older brother should never model for a younger brother, that he in the future ended up learning and taking to an extreme, like all things that he did, while somehow still keeping his shit together, somehow because he was so fucking cool, way better than I ever did. When I did all of that, he'd pick me up and bring me home and help me hide it from my parents and tell me that nothing mattered or tell me what did matter. Sorry. He would tell me what did matter and what didn't, and he would be right. And he's part of the reason that I'm still alive today. And not just that he saved me in a way that I didn't save him, but literally he actually one time bribed our way out of me spending a night in a Mexican prison, and he was then somehow able to convince a cab driver to drive us back to our hotel, even though we gave our last peso to the police officer that was trying to arrest us, even though neither of us spoke any Spanish. He was just that freaking cool. When I finally got my shit together and found chiropractic and found this mission and started building a life for myself, I would reach out to him randomly and try to, quote, help him through his problems, unquote, by trying to tell him to read this great book that I read, or just be more like me and model my example, or work harder, or find what's important, and whatever other narcissistic, egotistical thing that I do, thinking that I was amazing and everybody else was beneath me. And I would get frustrated when, quote, he just didn't listen, unquote. And some days after not talking for months, he'd reach out not to tell me to do anything, not to say anything in my face, but he would just reach out just to let me know how proud of me he was. Now, to be fair, I'm being intentionally hard on myself here. It's not like it was just a one-sided relationship of sunshine and rainbows versus doom and gloom. And maybe I'm being hard on myself because I genuinely just feel hurt and broken. And maybe I'm being hard on myself because I feel that it humanizes me to you and in some way makes me look deep and strong. And that's totally what a narcissistical, egotistical person would do. And maybe I'm really not as recovered from those thoughts and feelings and emotions and as I really think that I am. And maybe it's a mix of both, but really when it comes down to it, I have no fucking idea because I'm completely at a loss of what I'm going to tell my firstborn child about their Uncle Matt that they never get to meet. And how one of the last things that he ever said to me was a random text on a random night that said, with a smiley face, after an argument that we had, I'm going to be an uncle. Maybe it's because I had to watch my parents curl up on the floor next to their cold and lifeless son who they had struggled to help for years, with first horrible boundary setting and then mediocre boundary setting. And when my father had already lost his own brother to a similar lifestyle, and they couldn't even put a rosary in his hands because the police wouldn't let him because he could possibly have tested for COVID, and we're not going to have the COVID results for another 3 days. And if he has it, they won't do an autopsy, even though the writing is on the wall that it's probably something else. And I have no idea what to say or do as a brother or as a son or as a future father, and how I've attempted to live some sort of enlightened life of no regrets, yet the one thing that is coursing through my veins is infinite regret. Regret of not being a better brother? Regret of being a shitty role model? Regret of having zero respect. I mean, not even zero respect. Less than abusing the time that we had together. I cherished in the moment 0 of those moments. 0. And my brother, the problem, bad grade, always in trouble brother of mine, whose highest values in his life were family and friendship and loyalty, who would get on me time after time after time about how it doesn't matter what I create in my life. None of it matters if I don't have family, and holy shit, he's right again, and he had to go the hardest way possible to prove it. So here we are. It's on the table. I've got a crazy couple of days ahead going to Thanksgiving. I'm going to be raising a child. And it's on the table. I have a choice. We have a choice. We all have a choice. And we can sit in this regret, which we should and we will. And we should choose to just feel it and accept it for what it is. For a time. But we can also choose to learn from this. I'll never have another brother. That ship has sailed. But I can choose to never take another moment with another human being that I love for granted. Since my mission in life is the adjustment, I can choose to be intentional with every adjustment that I give and accept the gravity that maybe this touch or this hug or this thrust or this healing might be saving this person's life. And I can choose to truly, intentionally embody that with more than just words that I say into a microphone and tell my team. I can choose to actually live and embody that with myself, with my heart, with my soul. I can choose to bring up my brothers and sisters, not by family, but by love and choice, and choose not to sit with emotions of jealousy or comparison or envy or any of the above. I can accept those things as human emotions that we all experience them, recognize them for what they are, and choose to not accept them because they're not serving me and move forward. So do me a favor, please, and reach out to that person in your life that you know needs you to reach out. And if you're listening to this, it's probably because it's more than science or research or whatever. Maybe you like my journey. Maybe you like the humanization. Maybe you like the excitement. Maybe you like the emotion. I don't know what it is. But if you're listening to this, chances are that you do have somebody in your life that you know needs you to reach out. And just do it. And don't try to prove anything. Don't try to bring them up to be more like you. Just let them know that you love them. Right? Shoot, do a freaking recall and talk to somebody who fell off the face of the earth that hurt. Right? Just choose to do that. And please help me remember Matt with love and grace, for he is at peace.